They arrested him just because of his skin color. The officers didn't care who he was. But when Garrett Wilson revealed his true identity in court, it shook everyone to the core. His next move will stun even the toughest. But let's start from the beginning. Garrett Wilson, a 35-year-old black man, walks down the sidewalk after a long day at work. His sharp, tailored suit reflects the success he's worked hard for, the quiet confidence in his stride matched by the focus in his eyes. He's a financial consultant, well-respected in his field, and his life feels secure, until the world notices the color of his skin. As Garrett approaches the intersection, the sound of a patrol car breaks the evening's calm. Two white officers, James Smith and Sarah Johnson, pull up beside him. They take one look at Garrett, a black man, dressed sharply, and immediately decide to stop him. His peaceful walk, his composed demeanor, mean nothing to them. They don't even bother to offer an explanation, simply accusing him of looking suspicious. "Excuse me?" Garrett asks, confused and caught off guard. "I'm just walking home." But before he can respond further, Officer Smith steps forward, his face cold and dismissive. "Your ID," he demands, grabbing Garrett's bag with a rough motion. Garrett feels the shift. This isn't just a stop, it's an attack. He's done nothing wrong, yet the officer's actions show no interest in his rights. His mind races. "I'm not resisting," he says calmly, trying to de-escalate. But his words are ignored. "Why are you doing this?" Garrett protests, but the officers press on, forcing him toward the patrol car. Every muscle in his body tenses, but he refuses to give in to the fear that tries to crawl into his chest. Around them, a small crowd gathers. Some are silently watching. Others have their phones out, recording. The officers, oblivious to the rising tension and growing audience, continue their bullying, shoving Garrett roughly into the car. His heart pounds, but the injustice of it all fuels something inside him. He can't stay silent any longer. "This is racism," he shouts, his voice ringing out. But they don't listen. They push him further into the vehicle, their contempt obvious. Garrett is taken to the police station, his heart pounding with a mix of anger and disbelief. Inside the cold, sterile holding area, the mistreatment doesn't stop. As he's pushed into a small, dimly lit room, two officers, Sergeant Davis and Officer Cruz, begin mocking him. Their cruel, sarcastic laughter fills the space. "You really think you can talk back to us?" Officer Cruz sneers, his voice dripping with disdain. "A black man in a suit thinking he's special, huh? You haven't earned the right to challenge authority." The words sting like a slap, but Garrett doesn't flinch. His mind races, every word they throw at him fueling something deeper, a growing desire to fight back. Despite the insults and the degrading comments, Garrett remains calm, determined not to let them see his frustration. But inside, a plan begins to form. He can't let this pass unnoticed. He has to make them pay for their ignorance and bigotry. He demands a lawyer, his voice steady, even as he feels his dignity being chipped away, piece by piece. As the officers continue to taunt him, Garrett discreetly reaches into his pocket, pulling out his phone. He starts recording, knowing this video could be his only chance to expose the truth. His fingers shake as he hits record, but his resolve is stronger. He can't let this go down without evidence. He has to be heard. The officers, realizing what he's doing, rush toward him, their faces hardening with fury. They try to snatch his phone away, but Garrett holds on tight. With one final desperate swipe, he manages to upload the video to social media before they can confiscate it. Within hours, the footage goes viral. Hashtags like #JusticeForGarrett and #EndRacialBias begin trending. and the world sees the injustice. Public outrage explodes as more people demand accountability from the police. Garrett's quiet act of defiance has ignited a firestorm. His voice, once silenced, is now heard by millions. Garrett steps into the courtroom, but this time, he's no longer just the black man who was wrongfully arrested. He's become a symbol. His case is now bigger than him. The room is filled with an intense energy. Reporters, community activists, and local onlookers crowd the benches. The air is thick with anticipation as Garrett stands tall, his gaze unwavering, preparing to face the officers who sought to strip him of his dignity. The judge, a stern, older white man named Judge Raymond Turner, opens the proceedings with a voice that echoes through the room. He calls the first witnesses, the officers. Officer Smith and Officer Johnson testify, sticking to their story, explaining away their actions with rehearsed precision. They try to justify the unlawful detainment, but their words seem hollow in the charged atmosphere of the room. Garrett remains silent, allowing his lawyer to make the arguments, his calm presence, an unspoken defiance. Then, something unexpected happens. Garrett raises his hand, asking the judge for permission to speak. The room goes quiet, the tension palpable. Judge Turner, his expression unreadable, nods. With the same quiet confidence that has carried him this far, Garrett stands and addresses the court. "I'm not just any black man," he says, his voice steady but piercing. "I am the son of one of the most influential senators in this country." A collective gasp sweeps through the room. Garrett pauses, letting the words sink in. "My father, Senator Elijah Wilson, has spent his life fighting for racial equality and social justice. He's fought for a better world, a world where people aren't judged by the color of their skin. I've hidden my identity because I knew that if people knew who I was, they wouldn't see me. They'd see the color of my skin." The courtroom is stunned into silence. The officers' faces lose all color, their arrogance turning to realization. This is no ordinary man they've detained. They've just arrested the son of a political powerhouse, someone who has the power to expose their actions and change the system they've long controlled. Garrett wins the case. The courtroom erupts as the judge announces that the officers responsible for his wrongful arrest have been fired, and an official investigation is launched into their conduct. But the victory in court is only the beginning. Garrett's story becomes a symbol of resistance, sparking a nationwide conversation about the deep-seated racism embedded within the police force. His courage and unwavering determination have exposed the systemic injustice that far too many have faced in silence. The media quickly picks up the story, and Garrett's name spreads like wildfire across the country. His father, Senator Elijah Wilson, stands by his side, publicly supporting him and calling for sweeping reforms within the police force. Senator Wilson's statement, broadcasted on every major network, stresses the urgent need for accountability and change. He demands that the police system be held to higher standards, not only to protect people of color, but to restore faith in law enforcement across the nation. Garrett's social media pages are flooded with messages of support and admiration. People from all walks of life, black and white, share their own experiences of injustice and oppression, inspired by Garrett's bravery. The hashtags Justice for Garrett and #End Racial Bias continue to trend, creating a powerful movement that extends beyond the courtroom. Garrett doesn't stop there. Using his newfound platform, he speaks out against racial injustice, becoming an advocate for reform. He works tirelessly to amplify the voices of those who, like him, have been silenced by systemic racism. His story becomes a call to action, sparking a larger movement for racial justice. Garrett's victory wasn't just legal, it was emotional, cultural, and social. He didn't just win in the eyes of the law. He won the hearts and minds of a nation, proving that no matter how deep the prejudice runs, the truth will always rise to the surface. He is no longer just a black man in a suit. He is a leader, a symbol of resilience, and a powerful voice for justice.